What is going on, guys? Dino Bam Bam here with the 10-7 MMA. Happy to be back in your lives with another edition of the MMA Casuals Guide. In this episode, we are discussing UFC 294, Makhachev versus Volkanovski 2. Let's not waste any time. Let's get straight into the main event, an absolute super fight. We're going to start with the red corner, the UFC's reigning, defending, lightweight champion, Islam Makhachev. The Dagestani grappler Islam Makhachev is back and ready to defend his title against a former opponent in Alex Volkanovski, who's taking this fight on short notice. Originally slated to rematch former lightweight champion Charles "Do Bronx" Oliveira, Charles was forced to pull out of this fight with an injury, which led to Alex Volkanovski taking this fight on short notice. This fight, of course, is a rematch as well. The first fight took place in February of this year at UFC 284 in Perth, West Australia. That fight is one of the favorites to win Fight of the Year this year. If you haven't seen it, I will link it for you guys in the description below. Makhachev pulled out a somewhat controversial decision win in a very close fight. Makhachev is known for his Sambo style of fighting and his world-class wrestling skills that he learned under Khabib Nurmagomedov's late father, Abdul Manap. Islam was always seen as the camp's premier talent, and they always knew he would one day be champion. Islam Makhachev looks to defend his title for the second time in a row versus Alex Volkanovski. This time, he does it on home soil. I cannot wait to see what happens this time around as he faces the UFC's 145-pound champion, the Australian Alexander the Great Volkanovski. Alex Volkanovski is back on short notice, and he's looking to avenge his February loss to Islam Makhachev. After the February fight, Volk was quickly back in action at UFC 290 International Fight Week, where he defeated the featherweight #1 contender and Mexico's Yair Rodriguez. Volk defended his belt for the 5th time. After the fight, in his post-fight interview, Volk said he needed surgery on his elbow and that he may not be ready for a fight by the end of the year. He went on to have that elbow surgery and was cleared just a mere 3 weeks ago to return to training. News had come out that Alexander Volkanovski was to defend his featherweight title in January against rising undefeated contender Elliot, but when this opportunity to jump in on short notice was given, he jumped on it immediately. Volk looks to further his legacy by winning here and becoming only the 5th person in UFC history to simultaneously hold 2 belts, aka being a double champ. This fight has all the makings of being an all-time classic, and I cannot wait to see it. But before we do, we're going to see an absolute banger of a co-main event, where former welterweight king Kamaru Usman takes on quite possibly the scariest prospect in UFC history in Khamzat Chimaev. Let's start with the red corner, the Nigerian nightmare, Kamaru Usman. Kamaru Usman had a legitimate case being built for not only the greatest welterweight of all time, but perhaps just the greatest of all time. After a 19-fight win streak and 5 straight title defenses, Usman looked like he was cruising to its 20th straight win and his title defense against Leon Edwards when the MMA world was turned absolutely upside down. Usman was knocked out in the last minute with a vicious head kick in August of 2022. He lost his title that night. He was, of course, given an immediate rematch this year at UFC 286 in March. He ended up losing the rematch to Leon by majority decision in a pretty close and somewhat controversial fight. Usman, similar to Alex Volkanovski, is stepping up here on very short notice. Originally, this fight was supposed to be Khamzat Chimaev versus the Brazilian Paulo Costa, who was forced to pull out with an elbow injury. Usman is a high-paced wrestler who late in his career found violent knockout power. He weaponizes pace and cardio like very few can. About a year and a half ago, this matchup seemed like it was destined to happen for the welterweight title, but now we find ourselves with this happening at middleweight. Kamaru Usman looks to stop the first losing streak of his career, but in order to do that, he needs to beat the undefeated prospect Khamzat Chimaev. Chimaev is an absolute killer. I said it before and I'll say it again. This is the best prospect in years for sure, and maybe the best prospect we've ever seen in the UFC. Khamzat Chimaev is 6-0 in the UFC since debuting back in 2020. 5 of those fights were finished within 7 minutes. The only time we've ever seen him face any adversity was against Gilbert Durinho Burns. I'm going to link that fight for you guys in the description below. Chimaev seemed destined to rise up the welterweight ranks and eventually face then champion Kamaru Usman, but circumstances have led to this matchup being at middleweight and on short notice, which is pretty unfortunate. Khamzat has missed weight at 170 and has admitted he has trouble making weight, so a permanent move to 185 makes sense here for him. Chimaev, similar to Usman, is a wrestler, but his style is more of a mauling style. He is an extremely quick starter who immediately looks to take the fight to the ground and drown his opponents. He is a truly remarkable talent and a very unique fighter. I cannot wait to see these two fight. It's as big a co-main event as you're likely to ever see. Guys, besides the main event and besides this co-main event, there are a few fighters and fights we need to talk about. The feature fight is a clash of top 10 light heavyweights as number 2, Magomed Ankalaev, takes on number 7, Johnny Walker. Let's start with Magomed Ankalaev. Magomed Ankalaev is an 18-1-1 fighter in his MMA career. The last time we saw Ankalaev was back in December of 2022. He was facing the former light heavyweight champion Jan Blachowicz for the vacant UFC title. The champion at the time, Jiří Procházka, had to vacate his belt due to injury, and these two were given the opportunity to fight for the belt. After dropping the first 3 rounds of the fight, Ankalaev's legs were destroyed, but he found a way using his wrestling-heavy attack to win the next 2 rounds and find a somewhat controversial 10-8 round in the 5th to salvage himself a split draw. Magomed is a very well-rounded fighter. He's got good striking, he's got good grappling, and many believe on a good night that he can beat anyone in this division. This Saturday, he's taking on the Brazilian Johnny Walker. The fan favorite wild man Johnny Walker is back, and he is on a 3-fight win streak with wins over Iwan Cutelaba, Paul Craig, and Anthony Smith in that time. Johnny Walker is a super tall, super long-bodied striker. The former heavyweight is a big boy with big power. Johnny Walker is known for that power, and he's known for a wild striking style. He was once seen as a huge prospect, but fell on hard times after a couple losses. It looks like he's fixed all his issues, and he honestly looks better than ever. Guys, this fight should be an absolute banger. It's always fun to see the big boys throw down. I'm excited for this one. Other people on this card you should know. Ikram Aliskerov. He's a highly touted prospect at 14-1. The only loss in his MMA career is against Khamzat Chimaev, who of course is also on this card. That loss came outside of the UFC. If Ikram Aliskerov stays on a win streak and Khamzat's able to do the same, I'm sure that the UFC would love to make that rematch in the future. He's taking on the Brazilian veteran Warrley Alves, who, surprise, surprise, is also taking this fight on very short notice. Warrley is a jiu-jitsu practitioner who absolutely loves to brawl. We will also see the scrappy veteran, the always entertaining Tim Elliot. He's going to be taking on the undefeated young Dagestani-born prospect Mohammad Mokaev. We have the Abu Dhabi native and debuting striker Mohammad Yahya. He's taking on the absolutely insane street fighter Trevor Peek. One half of the popular undefeated Basharat brothers is here, Javid Basharat. The UFC's only Indian fighter, Anshul Jubli, will be making his debut. And of course, we will see the highly anticipated debut of the super scary looking prospect, Shara Magomedov. He's going to be taking on the powerful Brazilian striker, the veteran Bruno Silva. Guys, UFC 294 is an absolutely stacked card. It takes place this Saturday, October the 21st in Abu Dhabi. Quick disclaimer, if you're watching this fight in the States, this card starts early in the morning, 10 a.m. on the East Coast and 7 a.m. if you're in the West. If you enjoyed, we would really appreciate a like and a subscribe. Leave us a comment and let us know what your predictions are for this unbelievable card. Guys, I'm Dino Bam Bam with the 10-7 MMA. This was the MMA Casuals Guide. Thank you so much for watching. Peace.